Hello and welcome to the new episode of Russian Arc. We are broadcasting from Moscow to talk to the global audience about Orthodox Christianity and its place in the world today.
Today we are joined by Francesca de Bardin, former board member of the New York Chamber of Commerce, writer, citizen of the USA and France, and the resident of Russia.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What a biography, what a personality sitting here in our studio. How come did you get to Russia?
Well, I think it's fate. I was living in France, in southern France, for 8 years. And I had been living in an apartment there for 8 years. And one day the landlord came to me and he said, "We've decided to sell your apartment, so you can either buy it or move by February 2022. So I said, well, that's an interesting choice to make. I had been living in France. The government of France made it impossible to live well without being vaccinated. It was very oppressive at the time, and I was getting pretty fed up with it. I had left the United States in 2014 completely when I moved to France. So I began wondering, I had traveled all over the world. I had lived in New York City most of my life and in Paris. And so I said, well, where do I want to go? What should I do? And I had traveled as a tourist to Russia starting in 2016 and did 3 or 4 trips to St. Petersburg and Moscow and visited and took a very intensive guides with me because I was so intrigued with the culture and it was totally new to me. And I made friends with 3 Muscovites during that time, and we had stayed in touch. So I wrote to them and I said, here's my situation. What do you think? And they said, move to Moscow. You would love it here. So I took that very seriously because I had been there several times and I did really, really enjoy the culture. And I was living in France in a very small town, which can get very boring after a while. And so I said, well, why not? So I came to Moscow and rented a small apartment for 2 months. Talked to many real estate brokers to see what kind of apartment I could have, and just to see how I would feel, living here. So after 2 months, we found an apartment. I went back to France. I moved everything overland to Moscow, and I arrived on the 5th of January, 2022.
On the brink of the SMO.
Yes, about 6 weeks before.
So what happened next? Because the first question is why Russia? And then we will discuss how you actually received the news about the beginning of the SMO and all the changes we experienced. But at first, how does a person like you, with your biography, married to an aristocrat from France, born in the United States, decides to move not to Italy, to south of Spain, to Portugal, somewhere where a lot of people from the West would decide to go. But moving to Moscow, to another culture, another part of the continent, everything, at least a lot of, is different from the West.
Almost everything.
Country.
Almost everything. I speak French and Italian. My Russian is improving slowly. It was an easy choice for me. It was an easy choice because I was very unhappy in France. I didn't like the way the government was so oppressive about the vaccinations, which I refused to have. I had been watching the United States go down, 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 down for 15 years. And there was no way I would ever go back to the United States. That was clear to me. And having visited so many places, and Moscow had everything, and St. Petersburg, everything that I loved, the the ballet, the opera, the concerts. It had everything. The architecture. I couldn't see I couldn't see a good reason why not, frankly. And the truth is, I've been happier here than I've been in years.
What makes you happy here?
The people. The people. Mostly the people.
What's the difference between Muscovites and Westerners? Because Russian megapolises are really Westernized. I mean, we dress mainly like the West. We live like any other big European or American city. But you say that we're different.
You can visit a city or a country and enjoy it, but you never really know the country until you live there. And that's what I discovered after I moved here. I needed help almost every day for something. And Russians would overhear a dilemma I had, and they were always jumping in to help me. It was going on constantly, and I was absolutely shocked because the amount of humanity and compassion and kindness that I received every day was, I didn't understand what the source of this was because I had never seen it anywhere. I mean, of course people are polite and will help you if you ask anywhere in the world, but in Russia it's different. They didn't just take me where I needed to go. They waited until I got in the taxi, accomplished my mission, and was safely off. I started writing down all of these experiences because it was so overwhelming to me. And one of my friends said, you know, you should write all these down. And I started doing that. And then I said, you know, this is a book. Nobody knows this about Russians. Nobody. And so I started to try to understand where this humanity came from. Where did it arrive? How did these people get to be so different from almost every place else in the world I have been? And I have a friend who's a Russian historian, and I called her and I said, I'm struggling with this, can you come and talk to me? So she did. And she gave me some very good things to think about and to research. And I concluded that there's so, the Russian Orthodox Church has its traditions and values which have touched the hearts of Russians and the consciousness of Russians for hundreds of years.
Are these values close to you?
Pardon me?
Are these values close to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. But here they are part of the consciousness of Russians. In the West, we have all of our Christian religions, but none of them are as integrated into the soul and into the mind as the values here and the traditions with customs and the church has influenced art and culture and everything, politics, everything, and it's one of the critical things that created this sense of humanity because of the Russian values. It was also very important in the school system, in the Soviet system. The children were taught very early age, you have to love each other, you have to help each other, you have to take care of each other, be kind to each other. And that was critical in the schools during that time. So that was another intersection of this kind of humanity. And then the third thing was the hundreds of years of hardship that Russians have had to deal with the wars and the famines and all of those things, that they worked together. They were working as a team together. They helped each other. They relied on each other. It was a community, and everyone took care of each other. So I think those three things intersected to create this thing that I see every day I don't need as much help anymore, so I miss being helped by Russians, but I don't need as much help anymore. And but when I wrote the book, I wanted to explain to people this very important, profound difference between the West and Russia. In the West, I call Russia a we culture. It's a we culture. The West and the United States, they are I cultures. It's about me. It's about I.
Yeah.
It's about mine. It's not about we. And that makes a profound difference in attitudes and in behavior as well.
You brought your books here to the studio. How would you describe it? What's the main aim of this book?
Well, there's a couple of aims, 2 or 3 aims. I was so furious when the anti-Russian rhetoric reached a fever pitch. And because I could read the media from everywhere, I knew what was happening. And I was infuriated because I knew differently. I knew how the people were and how life was here. And I wanted to start rebutting that idea. That was my first inclination. I wanted to talk about all the things that they never say about Russia, which are grand and great. And
What things, for example?
the accomplishments. I have a whole section on Russian accomplishments going back to Peter the Great. Tremendous inventions and lists of them. And today, you know, when you look at where Russia was 24 years ago and where it is today, it's unbelievable. Russia was on its knees. And look at it today. It's something to be very proud of and to rejoice in. I mean, it's been extraordinary to see the changes that have taken place. I want for nothing here. Everything is available. I miss my French cheese, but that's about it. Everything else is available. I can have everything here. So that was one purpose, was to talk about. The other thing was that, you know, people they have this idea of Russian as this little black cloud, you know, gray cloud called Russians. I wanted to explain more about the Russian character and their values and the way they think and how they live and their social life, so that people could have a feel for them as a distinct culture. It's a distinct culture, just like Europe is full of distinct different cultures. So I wanted to make that clear too, that it was different, distinct, and it's been around for 1,000 years. So there's something to say about that. So I wanted to make Russians more real in people's eyes, you know. So I talk a lot about social life and do's and don'ts and family life and the way people spend their time and socialize. So that was the second part. Also, when I had the book translated into Russian, people said, well, why are you doing this? Everybody knows everything. Russians know everything. And I said, well, there's one thing they don't know, which is I'd like to tell them. The thing that has frustrated me the most about the Russians that I meet is they all think the world is better in the West or in the United States. And they couldn't be more wrong. They couldn't be more wrong. And it's so frustrating to me because whenever I hear this, I say, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Moscow was rated the #1 city in the world, big city, by the United Nations for the quality of life of its citizens. It's true, but nobody seems to appreciate that. So I wanted to remind them that, you know, the propaganda that they've been given for decades through the films and the TV series has depicted a way of life in the West that is not true. It's not how the average people live.
Hollywood propaganda.
It's propaganda.
Yeah.
Just like the propaganda in the West is so anti-Russian, the propaganda in Russia is all pro-West. So I just wanted to say, open your eyes. Open your eyes. You've been just as propagandized as the West has been, only in a positive way. So that was the third part of the Russian side of the book.
Well, that's great that you're talking about this, and it's really interesting and important both for the West and for Russia. But what do you see as the root of this propaganda? There are a lot of scientists, specialists in Russophobia, so probably you are part of them actually, because a lot of them are Westerners. I know people from Switzerland, from United States, who are exploring and trying to understand the roots and the essence of this feeling in the West towards Russia. I mean, in Western elites, because of course regular people in the streets, they are not anti-Russian, they just minding their business. But the elites mainly are. What is the root of the Russophobia, the systematic and actually centuries-old Russophobia?
It is centuries old, and I looked into that when I wrote the book, and about 300 years ago, when a Tsar of Russia was getting too close to India, the British became very concerned about their crown jewel, India. And that was really the beginning. They decided Russia had to be stopped at that point, and it had to be contained. And they've had that point of view for 300 years. Mm-hmm. And they have been pushing it for 300 years. And the West has gone along with it for a variety of reasons. They all have the same fears about the power of Russia. Russia cannot be contained, and they don't like that. They're accustomed to containing what they can. So I think it really goes back to that, and it's been documented over and over. There's been, there was a forged document of a will, a testament of Peter the Great, saying that, you know, his plan was to eventually take over Europe. Well, it was a forged document. They proved it was forged. And, but they still say the same thing. You know, after Ukraine, Russia is going to take over the West. There's nothing more ridiculous than that. Russia doesn't need land. And there are no natural resources in Europe.
But people in the West really believe in that.
I'm not sure. I once read that there was a poll in the United States, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and they're asking about who should be president of the United States, and 20% said Putin. You know, there are many people who are very educated in the States who read alternative media, who don't buy the story, and who are very supportive of Russia and its culture, its history. They just don't like to talk about it because it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous to be targeted in a positive way. So, but I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose, so I can speak.
I'm sure you have a lot of comments about your book. So what people in the West, what were writing about your book?
I haven't sold too many copies in the West because I think people are just afraid. The few that I have sold one of them stated to me, these are things I never knew, and there's a lot to be learned from this book. Russian people have been saying the same thing. it's been, the thing that surprised me the most was how afraid people are in the West. Mm-hmm. They're really afraid. And I find that shocking, you know. But the censorship in the West, especially in the United States, well, in Europe too, has been horrible. It's just been horrible. They censor anyone and anything that has anything positive to say about anything conservative, and for sure anything Russian.
Has anything changed after the Trump administration got into power?
Yes. He's trying to change a lot. He's trying to change a lot. I don't know how successful he will be, but the country is extremely polarized, and it's been engineered that way by people who continue to want the United States to control the world and are resisting any kind of multipolar endeavors. But I think that has to change because it's a fate. It's a fait accompli.
You moved to Russia several weeks before the SMO started. Even for those who have lived all of our lives here, it was a shock.
It was a shock.
It was a shock for patriots, for everyone. I mean, real war in your country.
What was it for you?
Yeah, but we cannot even imagine what it was for people who moved to a country from the West several weeks or months before the events. How did you see what's happening? How you see it now? We all have lived more than 3 years in it, and we've suffered. We've seen a lot of destruction. We've seen a lot of victories, and I mean, and it's still going on. What is your perspective?
Well, I was quite aware that in 2014, the United States created a coup d'etat in Ukraine to put their own people in power. That's documented. It's history. There are recordings of Victoria Nuland from the U.S. State Department speaking to the ambassador to Ukraine, telling her exactly who was going to be taking over what jobs in Ukraine after the coup d'etat was accomplished. So I was already very aware of what was going on. Was I surprised? Yes, but I understood. I have been following geopolitics most of my life. I find it a fascinating subject. So I've been reading a lot about that, and particularly my favorites are Americans who are experts in military history, in intelligence, but very high-level ambassadors, people like that I listen to. But it's mostly Americans I listen to. And so I was pretty aware of what was happening. It created many challenges for me because I had to change banks 3 times, and that was not an easy thing to do. Most of the people I knew stopped communicating with me in the States.
Oh, really?
They just completely cut off communication.
What a free country.
So it took me a while to get over that, but I finally did. And because I said to myself, if I didn't realize that this book would result in that. And I asked myself, well, if I had known that this would be the result, would I have written it anyway? And the answer is yes, I would have. So that's a result. But all of my friends are Russians here. All of my friends are Russians. They all speak English. Russians have embraced me. And in the beginning, you know, I would say, "Я не говорю по-русски, я американка." And they would say, "Oh, great, great."
Russian hospitality.
Russian hospitality. So then after the SMO, I said to myself, I wonder if I should still say that. Because maybe they won't feel so happy. But I said, no, I'm going to say it anyway and see what happens.
So what happened?
Nothing. It was still, yay, it was still fine. Nobody cared. And my Russian friends had been with me the whole time. They take care of me. They look after me. They don't want me to be lonely, which I'm not. I'm very, very busy. And trying to study Russian now, at least a couple hours a day. So I'm very occupied. And I mean, I do have, this was an interesting story. One of my best friends who lives in the middle of the United States, she and I speak almost every day. In the beginning, she could not understand why I would do this. She could not understand. After 3 years of talking and telling her all the little details of my life and how things were great, 2 weeks ago, she said to me on the telephone, "You know, I think you should become a Russian citizen. You're so happy there." I was shocked to hear that from her. I was just shocked. I said, do you hear what you just said? And she said, yes. She said, why not? You're very happy there. So
Are you going to be a Russian citizen?
I would like to, but it takes 2 more years. I have 3 years.
Now you have a residence permit.
Yes. Yes, so it takes 2 more years.
Have you traveled anywhere except Moscow and St. Petersburg?
Yes, I took the first trip here was in 2016, and I took a river cruise going all the way up to the Gulf of Finland, stopping at beautiful towns and palaces along the way, which was extraordinary. Then in the summer, I took a trip to Kazan, and I did a short river cruise from Kazan back to Moscow. And
Not a short one, actually.
it's a week.
Well, yeah.
Well, it was a week. To me, that's short. And then a few winters ago, I was invited to Sochi. And so I went to Sochi, which was extraordinary, in the Olympic Village area, up with the snow. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful. And the food was fabulous. It was so great. So that's the extent of my travels so far. I'm invited to go to a lot of places, and I shall visit.
You mentioned several times the role of Orthodoxy in Russian identity, in Russian culture and civilization. How do you see it now? Because, well, our show is called Russian Orc, meaning that we have, a spiritual perspective. What is yours? I mean, what is Russia now spiritually?
What is Russia?
Spiritually, from the spiritual point of view.
I think it's exemplified in the behavior of the people. I think it shows every day.
Is it Christian, the behavior?
Huh?
Is it Christian behavior?
Absolutely. 100%, 150% Christian behavior. The values are 100% Christian. Look after each other, take care of each other, help each other, be kind to each other. But they're more apparent in the Russian Orthodox religion than in any other religion that I've encountered.
What do you feel when you visit Orthodox Church?
The grandeur of it. My mother gave me, my mother was from Sicily, and there's a famous picture of the Madonna di Trapani. And it looks like a Russian icon. And I have it in my bedroom. And I look at that, and it reminds me, and it must be from, when the Greeks were in Sicily, because she's got the same look and the same, holding the baby the same way. So I've gone to some services. I went recently with a friend, and it was a service in French. The service was in French, and there was a party afterwards.
St. Nicholas Church, probably.
Probably. Yeah, I don't remember, but so many of the practices are the same as in the Roman Catholic practices. You have confession before communion, but you have the incense, you have the all of the fundamentals, basically in the actual process of the Mass are the same. I mean, there's theologically big differences, but in terms of, I mean, I've been to so many Russian Orthodox cathedrals. I mean, they are immense, they are grand. I was shocked the first time I was in Moscow when I saw that 3 huge ancient cathedrals are still in the Kremlin. They're still there. I mean, nobody took them apart. Nobody destroyed them.
Even though they tried.
Even though they tried, they're still there. And I was just surprised because they are ancient and very important cathedrals right in the middle of the Kremlin.
A lot of people are now entering the Orthodox Church in the West, especially in the United States. It's a whole, grassroots movement. Hundreds of thousands of people have entered the church in recent years. Why do you see this happening?
I think that the churches in the United States have given up their purpose. I don't think they are. I'm not speaking about Roman Catholicism. I'm including that with all the rest of them. I think they've lost their bearings. They've lost their purpose. They have adopted bizarre, unchristian, in my opinion, points of view, and the things that they support, I mean, real Christians don't want any part of. They just don't. But I think they've lost their way, all of them, all of them. And the Roman Catholic Church as well.
Do you see Orthodoxy as a possible bridge between normal Americans and normal Russians?
Yes, of course. But I see that there's other bridges that are just as powerful. There are cultural bridges that are extraordinary. You know, your literature, your ballet, your opera, your great composers. I mean, those are great bridges. Those are great bridges.
How do we build the relations in 2025 and on? Because sometimes, well, especially international journalists like ourselves with Lika, we were thinking, what should we do now? Because, well, the West is cut from us, and the cutting was from the West side, not from our side. And how do we restore it? Should we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that in the West, your bishops and your priests should start articulating all of the values that are articulated here in a very direct way. And I think that will attract more people, and it will touch people's hearts. People's hearts have been frozen in the West. They're frozen. And that needs to be opened. And the traditions and the values of the Russian Orthodox Church, you know, with the humanity and the kindness and the helping each other and traditional values are what people, the United States has always been conservative until recently. But it's basically been a very conservative, not very conservative, but a conservative culture. And I think most people in the world are basically conservative.
Still.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Regardless.
God.
Regardless. So I think, and I'm sure they'll do this. They will focus on the things that people are missing, you know, which is the values of the heart and the kindness, and helping each other and working together, and a sense of community, of a we. The we aspect of the church is so important. it's so different from the I of most religions in the United States. It's about their way of doing things, you know? And then none of them are the same. You know, there's so many different sects of Protestants, you know, and so many. I think there's a great opportunity.
What are your plans for the nearest future in Russia?
Maybe another book?
Promoting this one is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Studying Russian is on the top of my list. And it's extremely difficult, especially the pronouns and all of the prepositions that change everything. So I really don't, frankly, think past next week. I'm a very today person. I do what I have to do today. I enjoy, I cook a lot. I love to cook. I've discovered cabbage for the first time. So I'm learning to do lots of different things with cabbage. And
Borscht.
I love borscht, but it's too much work to make. I'd rather have somebody make it or eat it out. It's too much work.
Francesca, thank you so much for this great and inspiring conversation. Please show our viewers your books so that they could find them online. And
this is the English version. It's available on Amazon around the world. And this is the Russian version, which is available all over Russia and the Russian-speaking world.
thank you so much, and thank you for what you have already done and what you keep doing here for our friendship and actually for the prosperity and saving the world, how we can do this.
It was an amazing interview. Thank you very
Yes.
much, Francesca.
See you soon in the new episodes of the Russian Arc. Take care.
See you.